1969, New York City. A room at the Hotel Navarro. Jimi Hendrix sits on the edge of his bed, guitar beside him, paranoid, exhausted, looking over his shoulder. "I think someone's watching me," he tells a friend. The friend laughs. "Man, you're just high. Nobody's watching you." But Jimi isn't high. Not right now. And he's not paranoid. Not in the clinical sense. Someone is watching him. Multiple someones. The FBI. The CIA. Maybe others. Surveillance. Phone taps. Informants. Agents at his concerts. Reports filed. Files growing thicker. Jimi Hendrix, the greatest guitarist in the world, the voice of a generation, the symbol of peace and love and psychedelic freedom, was considered a threat to the United States government. Not because of his music, because of his politics, because of his race, because of who he supported, because of what he represented. This is the story of Jimi Hendrix's FBI file. A story of government surveillance, COINTELPRO operations, and a musician who became dangerous simply by being black, talented, and willing to speak his mind. The FBI's counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, officially ran from 1956 to 1971. 15 years of covert operations. Spying, harassment, disruption, assassination. Its stated purpose, according to the founding document: expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize subversive political groups. What that actually meant: destroy anyone the government considered a threat to the status quo. Civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, student protesters, Black Panthers, Socialist Workers' Party, Ku Klux Klan, American Indian Movement, Weather Underground, Students for a Democratic Society, anyone advocating for change, anyone challenging authority, anyone with influence over young people, and musicians, especially black musicians. COINTELPRO began in 1956, targeting the Communist Party USA, but it quickly expanded. By the 1960s, the program was massive. Thousands of operations, thousands of targets. The tactics were brutal. Illegal phone taps, breaking into homes and offices, planting bugs, intercepting mail, creating false documents, spreading rumors, turning friends against each other, blackmail, intimidation, planting drugs, false arrests, and sometimes murder. 28 Black Panthers were killed in COINTELPRO operations. That's documented, proven, public record. Fred Hampton, Black Panther leader in Chicago, assassinated in his bed by Chicago police working with the FBI. December 4, 1969. Drugged beforehand to make sure he wouldn't wake up. Murdered while sleeping. The FBI even wrote memos justifying the tactics. J. Edgar Hoover himself wrote, "Purpose of counterintelligence action is to disrupt the Black Panther Party, and it is immaterial whether facts exist to substantiate the charge." Translation: we don't need truth. We don't need evidence. We just need to destroy them. In 1969, an FBI special agent in San Francisco investigated the Black Panthers and reported back to Hoover that in his city, at least, the Panthers were primarily feeding breakfast to children. Community service, not violence. Hoover fired back a memo implying the agent's career was tied to his ability to provide evidence that the Black Panthers were a violence-prone organization seeking to overthrow the government by revolutionary means. Find evidence. Or create it. Either way, destroy them. This was the environment Jimi Hendrix walked into when he started expressing sympathy for the Black Panthers in 1969. But COINTELPRO's surveillance of musicians predated Jimi by decades. J. Edgar Hoover, FBI director from 1924 to 1972, hated what he called race music. Jazz, blues, rock and roll. Music that crossed racial boundaries. Music that inspired rebellion. Music that made white kids question their parents' values. Hoover believed music was a weapon, a tool for subversion, especially music created by black artists that appealed to white audiences. Jazz, in Hoover's mind, was communist propaganda. Blues was sexual deviancy. Rock and roll was racial integration and moral decay. So Hoover ordered surveillance. Lots of it. Harry Anslinger, head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, forerunner of today's DEA, shared Hoover's paranoia. Anslinger had been trying to destroy race music since the 1930s. Anslinger ordered all his agents to keep surveillance on prominent jazz musicians. Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, Count Basie, Cab Calloway, Jimmy Dorsey, Duke Ellington, Lionel Hampton, Thelonious Monk, Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday was targeted specifically because of her song, Strange Fruit, a haunting protest song about lynching in the American South. Anslinger wanted her destroyed. Agents harassed her relentlessly. She was arrested multiple times on drug charges. Died at 44, broken by the system. Miles Davis had a massive FBI file. So did Charles Mingus. So did John Coltrane. Any black musician who spoke about civil rights. Any musician who performed at protests or fundraisers. Any musician who challenged the status quo. File opened. Surveillance started. Harassment began. By the late 1960s, rock musicians joined the list. John Lennon had a 300-page FBI file. The government tried to deport him because of his anti-war activism. Bob Dylan was monitored. Joan Baez was monitored. The Grateful Dead. Jefferson Airplane. The Monkees. Yes, even the made-for-TV Monkees had an FBI file. Any musician with a platform. Any musician with influence over young people. Any musician advocating for peace, civil rights, or ending the war. Target acquired. File opened. Surveillance initiated. And then there was Jimi Hendrix. The FBI opened a file on James Marshall Jimi Hendrix in 1969. The file wasn't made public until 2011, 41 years after Jimi's death, when it was released through a Freedom of Information Act request. What triggered the file? Multiple things, all happening around the same time. First, Jimi's 1969 drug arrest in Toronto. May 3, 1969. Toronto International Airport. Customs agents found heroin and hashish in Jimi's luggage. Jimi claimed he didn't know the drugs were there. Said fans gave him things all the time. He just threw stuff in his bag without checking. Plausible? Maybe. Jimi was acquitted in December 1969. Jury believed him. But the arrest gave the FBI a reason to open a file. Drug charges meant they could monitor him legally. Keep tabs. Build a case. Second, Jimi's political statements. By 1969, Jimi was speaking more openly about race, war, politics. Not constantly, not aggressively, but enough to get noticed. In a 1969 interview with Rolling Stone, Jimi expressed sympathy for the Black Panther Party. Not full endorsement, not membership, just sympathy, understanding. I naturally feel a part of what all black people go through, Jimi said. He talked about racism, about inequality, about the struggle for civil rights. Nothing radical by today's standards. But in 1969, for a black musician with a massive white audience, it was enough. Another interview, this time with a teen magazine. Jimi was asked about the Black Panthers. His response shocked some people. Get the Black Panthers, not to kill anybody, but to scare federal officials. I know it sounds like war, but that's what's going to happen. It has to be a war. You come back to reality, and there are some evil folks around, and they want you to be passive and weak and peaceful, so that they can just overtake you like jelly on bread. You have to fight fire with fire. Strong words. Revolutionary language. The kind of statement that gets you on a government watch list. Was Jimi advocating violence? Not really. He was advocating self-defense. Resistance. Not passive acceptance of oppression. But to the FBI, it didn't matter. Any support for the Black Panthers, even theoretical, even conditional, was considered subversive. That interview was filed. Noted. Added to the growing dossier. Third, Jimi's benefit concerts. By 1969, Jimi was performing at fundraisers for anti-war groups and civil rights organizations. He didn't do it for publicity, didn't make a big deal about it. Just showed up, played, donated his time and talent. January 28, 1970, Band of Gypsies performed at Madison Square Garden. 2 shows, evening and midnight. The evening show was a benefit for the Vietnam Moratorium Committee, anti-war protest movement, organizing demonstrations, pushing for U.S. withdrawal from Vietnam. Jimi headlined, played Machine Gun, a 12-minute visceral, brutal anti-war tone poem. Feedback, distortion, sounds like bullets, sounds like screams, sounds like war. Machine gun, tearing my body all apart. Evil man make me kill you. Evil man make you kill me. Evil man make me kill everybody. Not subtle, not metaphorical, direct, angry, political. That concert was noted in his FBI file. Jimi Hendrix, performing at anti-war rallies, supporting subversive causes, using his platform to spread anti-government messages. But the biggest red flag, The thing that really got the FBI's attention was the Chicago 7 benefit concert. The Chicago 7. 7 activists charged with conspiracy to incite riots at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Jerry Rubin, Yippie founder, anti-war activist, counterculture icon. Abby Hoffman, Yippie co-founder, theatrical revolutionary, chaos agent. Tom Hayden, student activist, SDS founder, serious political organizer. Bobby Seale, Black Panther Party co-founder, revolutionary leader. Rennie Davis, anti-war organizer, movement strategist. David Dellinger, pacifist, older generation activist. John Froines and Lee Weiner, academics, lesser-known defendants. The trial started in September 1969. Became a circus. Judge Julius Hoffman was hostile, biased, contemptuous. Bobby Seale was literally bound and gagged in the courtroom for demanding his constitutional rights. The trial became a symbol. Government overreach. Political persecution. The establishment trying to crush dissent. Jimi Hendrix agreed to perform at a benefit concert for the Chicago 7 defendants. Free concert. Raising money for their legal defense. This was Jimi's most cutting insult to the state, according to later analysis of FBI documents. Supporting the Chicago 7 meant supporting revolution, meant supporting those who challenged government authority, meant being subversive yourself. The concert featured other major acts, but Jimi Hendrix was the headliner, the draw, the star. The FBI took notice, filed detailed reports, increased surveillance, noted Jimi's association with known radicals. Jimi Hendrix, supporting revolutionaries, funding their defense, using his fame to legitimize their cause. Dangerous, subversive, target acquired. But Jimi's political involvement went deeper than just concerts. According to multiple sources, Jimi donated thousands of dollars to the Black Panther Party. Some say he gave willingly. Some say the Panthers were extorting him, showing up after concerts in cities where their influence was strong, demanding gate receipts. Either way, money flowed from Jimi Hendrix to the Black Panthers. And the FBI knew about it. May 25, 1970. Memorial Day. University of California, Berkeley. The campus was explosive. Protests against the bombing of Cambodia, the expansion of the Vietnam War. The Jimi Hendrix Experience played at the Berkeley Community Center. As a condition of safe passage, ensuring the concert wouldn't be shut down by protests or police, a community relations consultant introduced Jimi to the wives of Black Panther leaders Artie Seale and Pat Hilliard. The meeting was private. Just the principals. No press. No public announcement. Afterward, Jimi agreed to perform a benefit concert for the Black Panthers at Oakland Coliseum in September 1970. Black and white. Together. The fusion of the Black political revolution and the white cultural revolution. Exactly what the government feared most. According to some researchers, COINTELPRO operatives intercepted this plan, made sure it never happened. Jimi played Berkeley, but not Oakland, because on September 18, 1970, Jimi Hendrix died in London. For months before the Oakland concert was scheduled, the FBI file on Jimi Hendrix includes more than just political surveillance. It includes a 1961 arrest for taking a motor vehicle without permission, car theft, basically. Jimi was 19. Charges were dropped. But the FBI kept the record. It includes detailed reports on the 1969 Woodstock Festival. Jimi performed there, played the Star-Spangled Banner in a radical, distorted, feedback-soaked deconstruction that became an anti-war anthem. The FBI report on Woodstock is telling. After listing the performers, the file states, those were only the entertainers named on the program. The main entertainment, if that is the correct word, was provided by the bizarre people present. Translation, we're not worried about the music. We're worried about the audience. The counterculture. The young people rejecting traditional American values. Jimi Hendrix represented that rejection, embodied it, made it cool. That made him dangerous. But here's the contradiction. Jimi Hendrix was not a radical revolutionary, not in the traditional sense. He regularly expressed hawkish views on the Vietnam War, supported American troops, had friends who were veterans. His father was a World War II veteran. When the Black Panthers approached him seeking partnership, Jimi reportedly told them, "The only colors I see are in my music." He wasn't a Black Panther, wasn't a member, wasn't ideologically aligned with their revolutionary goals. He was a musician, an artist, Someone who saw the world through sound and color, not politics and ideology. But nuance doesn't matter to surveillance programs. The FBI didn't care about Jimi's actual beliefs. They cared about his influence, his platform, his audience. Jimi Hendrix could fill stadiums, could reach hundreds of thousands of young people, could inspire, motivate, mobilize. That power, the power to move masses, was what the government feared. By 1970, Jimi was aware of the surveillance. He felt it, talked about it with friends. Monica Damman, Jimi's fiancée at the time of his death, later described how Jimi felt increasingly unsafe in New York. The city where he used to feel at home now felt hostile, threatening, paranoid. Jimi felt at times that he was under surveillance. Monica wrote years later. Others around him noticed the same. It wasn't just paranoia. People around Jimi confirmed it. Bandmates, friends, associates. They noticed strange things. Cars following them. People watching. Phones that sounded weird. Conversations that felt monitored. Jimi became secretive. Stopped trusting people. Kept to himself more. Started to distrust people he didn't know well. Things he told friends in confidence would somehow filter back to his manager, Mike Jeffery. Private conversations. Plans. Thoughts. Someone was informing. Someone was reporting back. Monica believed that Mike Jeffery, Jimi's co-manager, was the source of much of Jimi's paranoia. And maybe she was right. Mike Jeffery was a complicated character. Shrewd businessman. Former British military intelligence, MI6. Possibly still connected to intelligence agencies. Definitely connected to organized crime. Jeffery had worked in national service before joining military intelligence. He knew how surveillance worked. He knew how to manipulate people. He knew how to control assets. Was he working for the British government? The American government? The mob? All three. Nobody knows for sure. What's clear is that Jeffery was stealing from Jimi. Massively. Siphoning money into dummy accounts. Setting up shell companies. Diverting tour revenue. Skimming off the top. By 1970, Jimi was aware of the theft. He'd started asking questions. Looking at contracts. Demanding accounting. He wanted out of his management contract with Jeffery. Desperately. Jimi had filed lawsuits to recover stolen funds. The legal case was set to go forward. Jeffery would have to appear in court. Provide documentation. Answer questions. And then, just before the court date, Jimi died. Mike Jeffery allegedly told an associate after Jimi's death, "I had a hand in it." This claim is contested. The associate who reported it has been accused of lying. But the statement exists. It's on record. Whether Jeffery meant he literally killed Jimi, or just felt responsible for creating the environment that led to Jimi's death, we don't know. 3 years later, 1973, Mike Jeffery died in a plane crash. Iberia Airlines Flight 062 crashed into a mountain near Nantes, France. All 68 people on board killed. The crash was ruled an accident. Pilot error. Weather conditions. Mechanical failure. But some people found the timing suspicious. Jeffery dies just as more questions about Jimi's death are surfacing. Just as investigators are looking deeper. Just as people are demanding answers. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe someone wanted Mike Jeffery silenced before he could say too much. The official story: Jimi Hendrix died from asphyxiation. Choked on his own vomit after consuming barbiturates and alcohol. Accidental overdose. Tragic. Preventable. Stupid. The autopsy confirmed it. Case closed. But questions remain. Inconsistencies. Contradictions. Strange details that don't add up. Monica Damman's testimony changed multiple times. First she said Jimi took 9 sleeping pills. Then 18. Then she wasn't sure. The amount of barbiturates in Jimi's system was massive. More than anyone would take accidentally. Enough to suggest he was either trying to kill himself or was given the pills by someone else. Jimi's lungs were full of wine. Red wine. As if he'd been drowned in it. Not choked on vomit. Drowned. People close to Jimi, friends, bandmates, investigators, have suggested foul play. Murder. Assassination. Mike Jeffery allegedly told an associate that he had a hand in Jimi's death. This claim is contested. Jeffery died in a plane crash in 1973, 3 years after Jimi. Suspicious plane crash. No survivors. Devin Wilson, one of Jimi's girlfriends, fell from a hotel window in 1971. Dead at 32. Ruled accidental. Or suicide. Suspicious timing. Monica Damman herself died in 1996. Alleged carbon monoxide poisoning in her car. just days before she was scheduled to go on air to discuss the circumstances of Jimi's death. Ruled suicide or accident. Another suspicious death. 3 people connected to Jimi's final hours. All dead under questionable circumstances. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe COINTELPRO operatives made sure no one could tell the full story. Here's what we know for certain. The FBI considered Jimi Hendrix a dangerous subversive. They opened a file. They monitored him. They tracked his political activities. They noted his benefit concerts, his Black Panther connections, his anti-war statements. COINTELPRO, the FBI's counterintelligence program, was responsible for 2,340 documented actions against the New Left between 1956 and 1971. Actions included illegal phone taps, drug arrests, burglaries, bombings, and murder. 28 Black Panthers were killed by COINTELPRO operations. That's documented. Public record. Was Jimi Hendrix number 29? We don't know. Can't prove it. The file is incomplete. Pages are redacted. Information is missing. But the timeline is suspicious. May 1970. Jimi agrees to benefit concert for Black Panthers in Oakland. September 1970. Jimi dies in London for months before the concert. The concert never happens. The fusion of Black political revolution and white cultural revolution, exactly what the government feared, is prevented. Maybe it was just bad luck. Bad timing. Tragic coincidence. Or maybe COINTELPRO operatives saw Jimi Hendrix as a threat too big to ignore. A musician with the power to unite Black and white youth around revolutionary causes. A symbol too dangerous to let live. We'll probably never know the full truth. The FBI file is incomplete. Witnesses are dead. Evidence is missing. But one thing is certain. The United States government watched Jimi Hendrix closely, considered him dangerous, targeted him for surveillance and harassment. And within a year of his most politically active period, he was dead. September 18, 1970. London. Jimi Hendrix died. 27 years old. The FBI file on James Marshall Hendrix was closed. Filed away. Kept secret for 41 years. When it was finally released in 2011, it confirmed what many had suspected. The government had been watching, monitoring, building a case against a musician, a guitarist, an artist who just wanted to play. But Jimi Hendrix wasn't just a musician. He was a symbol, a voice, a force for change. And in the eyes of J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, that made him dangerous. Dangerous enough to surveil. Dangerous enough to harass. Dangerous enough to neutralize. The file is public now. You can read it yourself. FBI.gov, The Vault. James Marshall, Jimi Hendrix. It's incomplete, redacted, full of gaps. But it's there. Proof that the greatest guitarist who ever lived was considered a threat to the United States government. Not because of what he did, because of what he represented. Freedom, rebellion, unity across racial lines. The power of music to change minds and move masses. That power, the power Jimi Hendrix had, was too dangerous to ignore. So they watched him, followed him, built a file. And when he died, they filed it away and moved on to the next target. But the music remains. The legacy remains. The power remains. And no government file can ever change that.